and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I'm going to look at a video by a channel called Just Casual. And this is historical facts that mess with your sense of time. So I just wonder if this is going to be something like Cleopatra lived closer to Martin Luther King than the pyramids, you know, that kind of thing. I'm curious to see what these facts are going to be. I know there is a part 2 for this video. So if you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead and let me know. Don't forget to show some love to the original creators of the channel as well. And don't forget to like this video. And let us begin to learn. Okay. We're going to have some fun art.
When we try to put historical events into perspective, we often simplistically divide things into old days and modern times because our brains can often struggle with the perception of time. I compiled a series of interesting facts on historical events that surprisingly took place at more or less the same time, turning them into real and pretty fascinating coincidences, and will make you think twice about how you perceive the past. Number 1. The same tortoise belonged to both Charles Darwin and Steve Irwin. Harriet the tortoise was reportedly collected by Charles Darwin during his 1835 visit to the Galapagos Islands as part of his round-the-world survey expedition. Then she was transported to England and finally brought to her final home, Australia, by a retiring captain of the Beagle, the ship Darwin used for his expedition. And as we all know, tortoises can live quite a long time. And by a hilarious turn of events, Harriet turned up in Steve Irwin's zoo. That's right, the pet tortoise of Charles Darwin was adopted by the legendary crocodile hunter. However, some doubt was cast on this story by the fact that Darwin had never visited the island that Harriet originally came from. Anyhow, she had an estimated age of 175 by the time she finally died at Steve Irwin's zoo. Her life was an absolute win since Harriet got to meet 2 historical legends. Number 2. Today's oldest living tree was already 1,000 years old when the last woolly mammoth died. The world's oldest tree is a Great Basin bristlecone pine located in White Mountains, California, and is dated at around 5,000 years old. To put that into perspective, isolated populations of woolly mammoths on Wrangel Island didn't finally go extinct until 4,000 years ago, with the small island in the Arctic Ocean serving as a sanctuary for the great beasts after they were forced from the mainland by humans and climate change. So you don't have to go back to the Ice Age to meet some mammoth friends. Number 3. Woolly mammoths and the Egyptians. I think this fact is more popular nowadays, but I still want to...
I think I knew something like this one before. It's just something you don't think of. Like, you think about certain things happening, you know, 4,000 years ago or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, ancient Egypt. You don't necessarily think about, like, what was happening across the world, but things were happening.
To include it since it's a true classic. As I established earlier, woolly mammoths went extinct about 4,000 years ago when human societies were already around. The oldest of the Great Pyramids in Egypt, the Pyramid of Djoser, was constructed about 1,000 years before they went extinct, meaning that while man was busy building some of the most incredible structures ever made, woolly mammoths were still chilling on some islands. Number 4, Mahatma Gandhi and Jack the Ripper. Gandhi is so bound up with the titanic events of the 20th century that it might be peculiar to imagine him as a dapper gentleman of Victorian society. But that's exactly what he became while...
Because he was like a lawyer, right? He was educated in Britain as a lawyer. He was very fancy. I remember that mostly because of the Ben Kingsley video. Where's a movie?
Studying law in London, arriving in September 1888, right in the midst of the Jack the Ripper killings. Gandhi obviously had nothing to do with the Jack the Ripper killings, but it's funny to think about the fact that Gandhi could have become a suspect in the most famous murder case. Number 5.
Well, probably not, but it is interesting that they were there at the same time. Like, again, like a big historical, like, events like that, you think about them more separately, and not necessarily as contemporary events, you know? That's interesting. And this one is going to be even weirder. Nintendo and Jack the Ripper.
Nintendo and Jack the Ripper. Even though Jack the Ripper and Nintendo were around about the same time, he never got the chance to play classics like Zelda and Mario.
Too bad.
They originally made playing cards called Hanafuda when the company was founded way back in 1889. At the same time, the infamous Jack the Ripper was creating havoc on the streets of London. His murder spree happened only about a year before Nintendo came into existence. Number 6. Star Wars came out the same year as the last guillotine execution in...
I did know this one. I did know that Star Wars and the Last Guillotine or Guillotine or however you say it. I did know this one. I don't remember where I learned it. Probably Tumblr. I learned a lot of weird stuff from Tumblr.
France. When thinking about guillotine executions, our minds wander to historic figures like Napoleon. But you didn't have to be that old to get your head chopped off. Star Wars...
Do they? I don't think about Napoleon and guillotines in the same breath. I think about like Marie Antoinette even further back, you know? Like the French, the Reign of Terror. I don't think about Napoleon doing guillotines or guillotines. I don't think...
Premiered in the United States on May 20th, 1977. At the same time this futuristic sci-fi was wowing audiences around the world, Hamida, the pimp killer, Jandubi, was beheaded for the torture and murder of a young woman. This was the last use of the guillotine in France. Nobody else has been executed using any means since. Considering the timeline, even your own grandpa could have attended this last execution. Maybe he talked with some strangers about the new cool Star Wars movie while watching the execution. Number 7. Prisoners arrived at Auschwitz just days after McDonald's was founded. While McDonald's is traditionally associated with the good times and affluence of 1950s America, the very first restaurant was opened much earlier on May 15, 1940. At the same time, one of the most gruesome events in human history began in Europe. Just 5 days after McDonald's grand opening, the first prisoners arrived at the Auschwitz concentration camp in what is now Poland. Number 8. Oxford University existed for hundreds of years before the Aztec Empire was founded. The Aztec Empire began as an alliance of 3 city-states. These 3 city-states ruled the area in and around the Valley of Mexico from 1428. This came to an end when the combined forces of the Spanish conquistadors and their native allies under Hernan Cortés defeated them in 1521. Aztec culture had rich and complex mythological and religious traditions, as well as achieving remarkable architectural and artistic accomplishments. Meanwhile, in England, Oxford University...
But in the... Wow, in the like 1400, Jesus. I didn't realize how late that was.
It was already well established. It has no known date of foundation, but there is evidence of teaching as far back as 1096, making it the oldest university in the English-speaking world and the world's second oldest university in continuous operation. It grew rapidly from 1167, when Henry II banned English students from attending the University of Paris. So part of why Oxford is so famous today is because Henry pulled a clever marketing move. Number 9. Ecstasy was invented the same year the Titanic sank. The unsinkable Titanic sank in 1912, going down in the North Atlantic Ocean 4 days into the ship's maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City.
I just wouldn't have thought about ecstasy, some of these it's just I wouldn't have thought about, it doesn't really, I wouldn't have thought about wondering when it began, you know? It's oh yeah, it's a drug. And people with medicine, they were always trying to do different things with drugs. And it's I guess that's not something that I would have even questioned. I wouldn't have wondered it.
In the same year, pharmaceutical giant Merck was interested in developing substances that stopped abnormal bleeding. One of their chemists, Anton Kolisch, synthesized MDMA to avoid a patent by German rival Bayer. It wasn't until 1975 that psychoactive effects of the drug began to be taken seriously, and recreational use spread thereafter through personal networks of psychotherapists, psychiatrists, users of psychedelics, and yuppies. So, yes, everyone who died on the Titanic never got the chance to taste this drug. By the way, ecstasy raised one's body temperature, so if it had been invented earlier, it might explain why the captain was so desperate to ram an iceberg. Number 10. Microsoft was founded while Spain was still a fascist dictatorship. A highly controversial figure within Spain, Franco is seen as a divisive leader. Supporters credit his strong anti-communist and nationalist views, economic policies, preservation of traditional Spanish practices, and support of the monarchy of Spain as positive influences over the nation. Critics disparage him as an autocratic dictator who violently suppressed opposition and dissent, banned culture seen as non-Spanish, and provided much support to the Axis powers during World War II. Franco ruled Spain as a fascist state up until his death in 1975. This was
Sorry, this is gonna be controversial, but if your buddy is good friends with a Nazi, maybe you're a terrible person. Don't be friends with people who are friends with Nazis, that's all. That's my opinion. That's what I think.
The same year that Microsoft was founded by Paul Allen and Bill Gates, and the beginning of a new era in computer technology. Number 11. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was published the same year the first iPhone was released. The seventh and last book in the Harry Potter series was released in 2007, ending the series that began in 1997 with the publication of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That same year, something came along that has probably done more to kill children's interest in reading more than anything else: the first iPhone model. Considering that the first iPhone seems like a vintage phone now, it's impressive how fast time goes by. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. This was Just Casual, and I'm standing right behind you.
No, he's not. It's fine, I checked. Anyway, okay, that was... I think I'd heard of like one or two of those, but not all of them. And some of them is just like... It's just not something I would have considered wondering about. So, I don't know. Like, do you all know any fun facts of like two things that happened around the same time? That you just... Like, let me know, because that kind of thing is interesting to me, so I hope it is to you as well. And if you want to see more stuff like this, like I said, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to go and check out the channel Just Casual as well. The link is in the description box below. I will see you all in the next video.